The director looking for a mind mate. For the director, dating is not entertainment, as with the explorer, or a social activity, as with the builder, but an expenditure of time and energy. Directors approach dating the same way they approach their other interests, by rationally analyzing their hopes, needs, and intentions. Foremost, they seek a partner who shares their goals, as well as someone who is eager to exchange ideas, build theories, and talk about science, philosophy, politics, history, or whatever interests them. They seek a mind mate. To balance out their forthright style and tendency to make decisions quickly, directors also gravitate to people who weigh alternatives, listen actively, handle conflicts deftly, and have other well-honed social skills. Because they analyze their own emotions, as well as hide them, directors tend to seek mates who are emotionally expressive. Because they have difficulty dealing with controlling people, they tend to be attracted to those who are flexible, even indecisive. And they gravitate to individuals, often negotiators, who have the empathy and intellectual complexity to handle their sometimes forceful personality. Directors are rarely interested in pursuing several relationships at once. Instead, they want deep discussions on intellectual topics with a single partner. As a result, many have had little dating experience in their youth, and they can be socially awkward. For example, on a date, a director is capable of treating you with benign neglect if he or she doesn't envision a future with you. And if directors find themselves in a dead-end relationship, they end it abruptly, before it gets out of their control. Directors have a take-charge style. They like to debate, to spar. They can't tolerate moralizing, and they are impatient with anyone who doesn't interest them. But when a director finds someone whom they regard as a person of quality and worthy of their time, they focus intently on him or her. They will talk and listen with rapt attention. Intellectual sharing is sexy, even romantic, to the director. And directors can be very romantic. Sentimental crooning, sending routine cards or flowers, even anniversaries mean little to them. But they are prepared to make a deep and genuine commitment to another person. And when they find the right individual, they will carefully engineer heartfelt activities to do with their beloved. They do not like to engage in public displays of emotion, however, as they admire self-control. Instead, they focus on exactly what you want and try to provide it, even if it's a rare book or a trip to Pitcairn Island. Directors also want to be needed to help to fix your problems. So if you clearly and logically describe your issues in the relationship or other difficulties, the director will often go to the ends of the earth to help you resolve them. In their romantic relationships, directors seem to express more storge, the Greek term for a feeling of special friendship that lacks the display of emotion. In fact, directors generally have only a few serious relationships before they marry. In my personality type study, I asked the question, how often do you fall in love? Directors fall in love the least frequently of all the types. Yet once they have decided to build a partnership, they don't defect easily either, even if the relationship is not exactly what they had hoped for. Directors don't like to change their minds. Directors have a high sex drive, a trait associated with testosterone. Most don't enjoy sleeping around while single. Once in a committed partnership, however, directors regard sex as central to the union. When their sexual appetite is whetted, it can lead to more sex, too, because any kind of sexual activity triggers testosterone, creating a feedback loop of wanting sex, having sex, and wanting more sex. This doesn't apply to only men. High testosterone women have more sexual fantasies than other women, as well as more sex. Even when they are anticipating sex, testosterone levels increase. Known as the lighthouse effect, this response was first discovered when scientists measured the beard trimmings of a lighthouse attendant. He lived alone on an island during the week, but every Friday evening he sped to the mainland to enjoy the weekend with his girlfriend. On Fridays, his beard grew more than usual, the effect of testosterone triggered by sexual desire. Directors seldom share the details of their sexual lives with friends, however. If sex is entertainment to the explorer and relaxation for the builder, it is deeply meaningful to the director, woven with subtleties and symbolism. So the director seeks a mate who is perceptive and imaginative and finds intimacy in this psychological journey. Directors, like explorers, are also more comfortable talking about their sexual needs than other personality types. Yet the director's secondary type, as well as their childhood and other factors, will affect what they're looking for in a mate. Directors, as a rule, are highly independent. They follow only rules of their own making. And as they expect freedom in a relationship, they give freedom to their partner. But director explorers need the most privacy and autonomy. So they seek someone who is just as self-sufficient as they are, particularly someone who enjoys time alone. These men and women also like an irreverent mate, someone who shows little concern for social conventions, as well as a mate who is imaginative, adventurous, and not competitive with them. Director builders are leaders, often world leaders. As directors, they are highly motivated to succeed. As builders, they are skilled managers with clear objectives. Even in courtship, these men and women know what they are looking for and rarely settle for less. They are also the most social of the directors, gravitating to partners who will help them maintain their public, business, and personal ties. Director builders are also the most likely of all directors to enjoy the formalities of dating. They are pragmatic, skeptical, and schedule-oriented, and they date purposefully. They can be hard to get to know, however, as they can hide their complex personality behind a wall of composure, logic, and humor. Directors follow few customs of courtship, but the director-negotiator is especially unlikely to see any intrinsic value in courtship formalities. Even matrimony, although acceptable to director-negotiators, is not as important to them as is their partner's personal conduct. Commitment and loyalty are paramount to these people, however. These men and women are also the most romantic of the directors. They work to sustain this romance, too, even in a long-term partnership. They give special gifts, send special notes, and celebrate special events with flair and sensitivity. Directors are forthright. They let you know what they want and how they wish to proceed, and they can be hypersensitive to even tiny signs of rejection. With this personality type, you know where you stand. Moreover, directors often know within a couple of meetings whether they can build a future with a date. And if they find the one, most become dedicated mates, particularly when they regard this person as a mind mate. The negotiator, looking for a soulmate. Negotiators seek the ideal partner, someone with whom they can make an intensely intimate, deeply meaningful, inspiring, and spiritual connection, a soulmate. And when they find him or her, they work tirelessly to promote harmony with this cherished companion, the love of their life. Negotiators are popular with all types because they are flexible, appreciative, affectionate, good at reading others' thoughts and feelings, empathetic, and superb at expressing their own ideas and emotions. So they tend to have a lot of dating choices. And because they are so curious about people and tend to like and trust them, they are able to build a meaningful relationship quickly. But negotiators, like directors, prefer to go out with one person at a time and to explore the depths of this potential partnership. If dating is entertainment to the explorer, social participation to the builder, and an investment of time and energy to the director, it is the search for a deep and authentic personal connection to the negotiator. In fact, most negotiators prefer to avoid social events when getting to know someone. Like directors, they dislike wasting time on irrelevant, trivial, or boring socializing, and as negotiators they can't tolerate chit-chat in which no feelings are shared. In fact, to them, parties are barriers to their quest to engage in heart-to-heart conversations, intimate exchanges that explore feelings, beliefs, goals, and ethical dilemmas, or the meanings behind art, music, poetry, or other abstract topics. With these tete-a-tetes, negotiators seek common intellectual and emotional ground and hope to build a bridge to another soul. Because negotiators reveal their hearts to a potential partner, they can be deeply hurt by rejection. In fact, negotiators are often the type that stops dating for periods of time. To them, dating isn't fun. It's a true giving of themselves and a journey deep into the psyche of another, all for the high purpose of forming a bond for all eternity. It's no surprise, then, that among the members of Chemistry.com, negotiators, like builders, are highly likely to say that they are seeking marriage or a long-term committed relationship. This makes biological sense. Both estrogen and oxytocin, the primary chemicals of the negotiator, are associated with bonding, nurturing, and attachment. And when they find the one, negotiators are superb at generating and maintaining intimacy with this partner. Their emotional antennae are always quivering. They avoid conflicts with the mate and make major personal adjustments to strengthen this cherished bond. They give thoughtful gifts, such as a treasured book or photograph. They bestow meaning on everyday interactions, such as a ritual morning kiss or afternoon phone call at the office. They share their most personal feelings, and they want their partner to share his or her feelings too. In fact, negotiators particularly enjoy analyzing their partner's thoughts and motives, as well as the things that stabilize or undermine the union. Negotiators are the most romantic of the four types. In my personality type study, I asked the question, how often do you fall in love? Negotiators fall in love the most frequently of the four types. If adventure is essential to the explorer, and loyalty is imperative to the builder, and sex is vital to the director, romance is critical to the negotiator. So these men and women plan romantic evenings and weekends, send romantic cards and emails, express their love regularly with hugs and endearing words, and hope for clear, regular signals that their devotion is returned. Sex, for the negotiator, is another essential part of a partnership. But sex must be mixed with romance, communication, and emotional intimacy. Casual sex is not casual to negotiators. If they engage in it, they expect a meaningful relationship to develop. Yet even sex with a familiar partner can have some minefields for this personality type. Negotiators have a rich fantasy life, and they can idealize a lover, regarding him or her as perfect. Then, as they get to know their mate, they can begin to see their partner's imperfections and become disillusioned. Their fantasy is tarnished, and their negative feelings can contaminate not only their life in the bedroom, but the entire relationship. For negotiators, sex and love are utterly intertwined. Negotiators are far more complex than they often seem. While they deeply value harmony and closeness with a partner, and spend an inordinate amount of time and energy building a profound connection with this soulmate, they don't like clingy or demanding people. So if a partner begins to require an inappropriate amount of their attention, they can feel burdened and pressured to provide more love, as well as eager to be free. Negotiators expect an eternal union, but each partner must respect the other's needs. Different types of negotiators have different needs and desires, of course. Negotiator explorers are lovers through and through. As negotiators, they seek a bottomless spiritual connection with a true love. As explorers, they are particularly attracted to individuals who are daring, playful, and adventurous. But both negotiators and explorers can be chameleons, so charming, personable, and eager to please that they can be difficult to get to know. The same can be said about negotiator explorers. They might not know who they are either, because they have so many angles to their personality. Yet these men and women bring much to a relationship, regularly kindling imaginative and creative conversations and experiences that are interesting and fun. Negotiator builders are superb at handling people. They are sympathetic and tactful, and intuitively know what others are thinking and feeling. With their command of language, their enthusiasm, and their acute social sensitivity, they can be warm and charming on a date. But negotiator builders are also the most pragmatic of the negotiator types. To them, love must be embedded in a stable, long-term relationship. They are also traditional, believing that this emotional connection should culminate in a march down the aisle. They want a partner who makes plans, adheres to schedules, and has a fixed moral view. Negotiator directors, like all negotiators, seek timeless love with the perfect partner. They intend to bond in a spiritual sense, communicate their deepest inner feelings, and enjoy an intense, meaningful, and lasting relationship. But negotiator directors can be straightforward, tough-minded, and analytical. And despite their poise in social situations, they are the most likely of the negotiators to engage in focused, even competitive conversations, intensely exploring ideas, insights, and spiritual beliefs. Mark Twain once said, "Put all thine eggs in one basket and watch that basket." Negotiators do. Marriage is important to most of them, but the social pledge of matrimony is far less sacred to many negotiators than the deep personal commitment they privately make to their partner. To negotiators, this personal vow is the true marriage vow. External rituals do not sanctify their devotion. Many even write their vows to create a non-traditional wedding ceremony. In fact, I've come to believe that negotiators expect of their partnerships something that the other three types often don't seek, don't understand, and don't even appreciate: absolute and unconditional love. If the explorer expresses ludus, playful love, and the builder seeks more pragma, love based on compatibility and common sense, and the director displays more storge, a deep feeling of special friendship for a partner that lacks overt displays of emotion, the negotiator expresses more agape, the Greek word for gentle, unselfish, all-giving, unconditional love. As a result, negotiators tend to stay in a relationship far too long. Their sense of responsibility and compassion, their patience, and their drive to create this unconditional connection override their disappointment in a poor match. Still, if a negotiator comes to believe his or her partner is not a soulmate and cannot grow to become a soulmate, he or she eventually departs to search for perfect love. Clicking. So where are we? We all have personalities. Roughly 50% of the variations in your personality arise from your biology. These are your inherited traits of temperament. We each express a primary and secondary personality type, and your primary style of thinking and behaving guides you towards certain mates. Explorers are initially drawn to other explorers, and builders tend to click with other builders. Directors, on the other hand, gravitate foremost to negotiators, while negotiators are drawn to directors. Moreover, each type seeks different things in a partnership and courts in different ways. But there's more to mate choice than your temperament. So before I examine how these basic personality types actually get along with one another in a long-term partnership, I must consider some of the other forces that drive us to choose him or her. Chapter 9. Thunder, open chasms of light in your dark eyes, in the night, on the water, and in me the storm was born. Luca Corpi. Falling in love, the funnel. It may not happen in the first instant, but within 10 minutes of meeting a man, a woman has a clear idea of who he is, or at least who he might be to her, and her heart of hearts has already told her whether or not she's going to fall in love with him. Orhan Pamuk, the Turkish Nobel laureate in literature in 2006, knew that women can feel an almost instant attraction to another. Men can too. Love at first sight doesn't happen to everyone. In one study of almost 100 men and women, it had occurred to some 10% of them. Yet we can all walk into a room full of people we don't know and pick out one or more individuals to whom we feel attracted. It takes less than a second to make this judgment. Each personality type is especially attracted to certain others, of course. Temperament always plays a role in who you choose. But other forces also contribute to that spark of romantic ardor. Your childhood experiences, the things you need and want from a beloved, a potential partner's looks and voice, these and many other subtle forces can ignite or quash feelings of romantic passion. Love operates like a kind of funnel. As you get to know people, you get to know more and more about them, and gradually, or rapidly, you weed out all until you find the one. This process of mate choice, as scientists call it, often begins with something beyond our control: timing. A time to reap. There's a time to reap, as the Bible says. We tend to fall in love when we're ready. The near-perfect partner can be standing by the door as you walk into the room, but you might not notice him or her unless you're ready to start a new romance. We don't always know when we're ready, though. Romantic love can strike when you least expect it. But there are certain times when all 4 personality types are particularly vulnerable to this bliss during a life passage, a transition, a period of change. If you've just moved to a new city, entered college, or started a new job, if you've recently divorced, recovered from a broken heart, or are between things in some other important way, you are more disposed to falling in love. This was true of Patrick, the man whose wedding I attended a few months after he signed up with Chemistry.com. Patrick was adrift, uprooted from his home, his career, and his community in New Orleans. Hurricane Katrina had stolen all. His bride, Suzanne, must have been ready too, because she had also joined Chemistry.com to look for a long-term mate. This susceptibility probably has a chemical component. Transitions produce stress and strong emotions. Anxiety, panic, terror, fury, jealousy, elation, all activate chemical systems in the brain that can escalate feelings of romantic passion. So as you struggle through one of life's upheavals, the circuits in your brain for general arousal, energy, focus, and motivation can push you closer to the threshold for falling in love. Wartime unquestionably stirs one's romantic passion. In 2006, Nadia Habib, an Iraqi wedding planner in Baghdad, told a New York Times reporter that she had recently transported an extraordinary number of 15-layer wedding cakes with buttercream frosting through the checkpoints and convoys of American Humvees that were snarling traffic in the 110-degree heat. Explaining the unusually high number of weddings, she said, "The sense of danger intensifies people's feelings for one another." Still, I suspect that each personality type falls in love during times of stress or joy for slightly different reasons. Explorers like change. Novel, unpredictable situations often thrill them. In this invigorated state, they may become even more flexible and optimistic than usual, noticing people they would have overlooked in a less stimulating environment. Builders, on the other hand, crave order and stability. So as builders become more and more agitated under stress, they may seek a partner as a haven in a storm. Directors are saviors. They want to be useful, to be needed. So as they help those around them during a crisis, they may fall into the arms of a beloved. As negotiators become increasingly anxious and emotional under stress, they probably employ their standard tend and befriend response, the drive to build deep connections with others. And as negotiators reach out to connect, they may stumble on the one. Proximity. Ah, I have picked up magic from her nearness. So wrote poet Ezra Pound. Proximity also contributes to romantic passion in all 4 personality types. At work, in class, at the gym, in the neighborhood, you tend to fall in love with those who are nearby. In a recent study of 100 young American men and women, 63 said that they had fallen in love with someone because he or she was around. The power of proximity was vividly expressed in an email I recently received from a man in Canada, Sandy. I suspect Sandy is an explorer. He wrote, "I used to think I would never marry. It just seemed like too much trouble. I had a lot of girlfriends, but I could never really see any reason to tie the knot. But I kept seeing a woman who lived across the street. We would make idle chit-chat as we came and went. She wasn't my type at all. I never would have approached her at a party. But I became fond of her. Eventually, I fell in love with her. Now we have been married 32 years, and I am still deeply in love with her. She's warm and loving and a great mother to our 3 children. I'm just grateful that she lived next door. She made my dreams come true." Data indicate that the more you interact with somebody, the more you are likely to regard him or her as good-looking, interesting, smart, and similar to yourself. The better you like them, too. but one's passion for those who are around is probably not random. People with similar interests and backgrounds, or of similar ages and economic means, tend to congregate in the same places. My personality type studies showed that explorers and negotiators prefer to live in a big city. Builders like the suburbs, and directors choose the mountains. So if you're an explorer or builder, head for where you want to live, then seek a mate. Your ideal partner will be there too. If you're a director, you'll have to find your negotiator where the action is, then transport your family to a mountaintop, or at least take them there on vacations. And if you're a negotiator, live on the high peaks or anywhere else. Directors have the focus and determination to find you. Familiarity and barriers. All four types are also likely to be attracted to individuals who are somewhat familiar. Repeated exposure, as psychologists call familiarity, seems to lessen dread and heighten interest. But I suspect that builders are the most likely to wed the girl or boy they've known since childhood, because builders are particularly comfortable with what and whom they know. Explorers, on the other hand, are probably the most inclined of the four types to seek a mate outside their circle of friends and kin, perhaps even someone from another country who speaks a foreign tongue. Because negotiators are also mentally flexible, as well as particularly compassionate and interested in people of all kinds, this type may also marry more frequently outside their familiar realm. And directors want a mind mate, so familiarity will not be a drawing card for them either. But even builders are not likely to fall in love with someone they know extremely well. Too much familiarity is a romantic turnoff, as life on an Israeli kibbutz has shown. In the heyday of these collective farms, all children grew up together, eating, sleeping, and bathing in their common children's house. By age 12, however, boys and girls became tense with one another and began to avoid any sort of physical contact with others in their group. Then, as they matured, they began to regard one another as brothers and sisters. In one study of an Israeli kibbutz, no two members who had shared a common cradle when below the age of 6 married each other. As a result, scientists have concluded that at some point in childhood, probably between ages 3 and 6, boys and girls who are exceedingly familiar with one another lose forever the ability to fall in love with these individuals. Mystery is, indeed, an aphrodisiac. So even builders who marry their childhood sweetheart probably didn't know that person intimately when very young. Barriers also spur romantic love. If you believe someone is unattainable, you tend to like him or her even more, what psychologists call the Romeo and Juliet effect and what I call frustration attraction. Some of the brain circuitry of this phenomenon is known. When foiled, the brain's system for wanting just keeps pumping, urging you on with focus, energy, and incentive. Mirror, mirror, looks count. So let's say the timing is right. You moved into town 3 months ago. You've felt lonely yet exhilarated for weeks. Your emotions are running high. And you've come to a party with some friends from the office. You're standing with acquaintances when suddenly someone new joins your cluster. You have seen him or her around. You can't remember where. The newcomer is slightly familiar, yet mysterious. And you're ready to fall in love. What happens first? You look. Surreptitiously, you scan this novel creature with your eyes, even before you're introduced. Looks count. The male brain is particularly well built for sizing up potential mates by looking at them, as my colleagues and I noticed when we put men and women into a brain scanner and collected data as these subjects looked at photographs of their beloved. Our male subjects showed more activity than females in regions of the brain associated with visual processing, particularly of the face. No wonder women go to such extraordinary lengths to advertise themselves visually. This heightened male sensitivity to looks may also explain why men fall in love faster than women. But just about everyone wants a partner who's good-looking. Studies show that we tend to regard people we find attractive as confident, smart, stable, friendly, generous, self-effacing, sensitive, financially secure, healthy, and popular, traits most people seek in a mate. And we are particularly drawn to those with symmetrical features. Chimpanzees share our taste. They also prefer symmetrical features in a mating partner. In fact, symmetry is the essence of beauty to many mammals and birds, even insects. Female scorpion flies prefer males with uniform wings. Peahens prefer peacocks with symmetrical tail feathers. Monkeys favor consorts with symmetrical teeth. Even 2-month-old human infants gaze longer at more symmetrical faces. Why? Good-looking people aren't necessarily nicer, smarter, or more compassionate than the rest of us. But symmetry sends a special message to the unconscious core of the brain: good genes and good health. It's an honest message, too. Individuals with well-proportioned, symmetrical features have been able to avoid accidents and combat the bacteria and viruses that produce irregularities. In short, symmetrical men and women have sturdy immune systems. So the human taste for a symmetrical partner is an adaptive mechanism that evolved to motivate us, as it does many other creatures, to select biologically fit mating partners. Fortunately, however, both men and women also tend to be most attracted to people who share their own degree of good looks. But each personality type probably has particular preferences. Explorers have more expressive faces, so these men and women may be more likely to be drawn to an animated, energetic visage. Builders, on the other hand, may be more drawn to those who look conservative, women with less makeup, and men with a more traditional haircut. Directors clearly seek those with signs of high estrogen, such as round faces and full lips, baby faces. And negotiators are drawn to those with broad angular faces and other facial signs of testosterone. Negotiators may also like the less expressive face, the poker face, because testosterone tends to reduce one's facial expression. Back to the party. You've looked. You like the stranger's face. What next? Shape counts. The body. As deftly as possible, you check out this mysterious person's frame. Men tend to be more attracted to a woman with a beautiful body and less inviting face than to one with a gorgeous face and an unappealing figure. Height is not an issue for men. They like women of any reasonable height, although, as a rule, they prefer shorter women. And most men prefer voluptuous, curvy women to thin ones. In fact, studies show that men in the United States, Britain, Germany, Australia, India, Uganda, and several other countries are particularly attracted to women whose waist circumference is about 70% of their hip measurement, probably because women with this waist-to-hip ratio are more likely to bear healthy young. Men in ancient Europe, Asia, the Americas, and Africa also preferred this particular shape. We know this because thousands of years ago they were carving statues of women with these proportions. Women often downplay the importance of bodily appearance in a potential sweetheart. When they are hooked up to lie detectors, however, they admit that physical appearance plays a big role in their feelings of initial attraction. Women are drawn to men with a developed chest, broad shoulders, narrow hips and legs, and small buttocks. Women also like tall men, an indication of testosterone, perhaps because tall men tend to get better jobs and make more money and are more likely to become powerful in business and politics. Tall men look more intimidating, too, and thus potentially more protective. Women are also drawn to men who stand or sit in a carefree pose, a sign of dominance, to those who are self-confident, assertive, and smart, and to those with a deeper voice, another sign of testosterone. And women are particularly fond of men who are coordinated, strong, and courageous, as well as men with money, status, education, and resources. In fact, everywhere in the world, big men, as they're called in hunting-gathering societies, are prized, for the obvious reason that rich men can provide. But once again, each personality type has some slightly different preferences. Explorers have a relaxed, fluid, energetic way of moving that probably particularly appeals to other explorers. You may have noticed that Barack Obama moves with the smooth, graceful style of the explorer. Builders send a different signal. When I briefly met a group of builder men and women at a singles party, I was struck by the number of men wearing a suit and tie, thus advertising their business savvy. They also held themselves in a formal pose, sitting or standing as if planted, rather than about to move. Female builders were more formal too. Both male and female directors most likely gravitate to more feminine bodily features, the soft, unthreatening look. And negotiators, both men and women, are probably particularly attracted to tall partners with slim hips. I know some negotiator women who will go out only with a tall man. They are dancing to nature's rhythm, searching for their counterpart, high testosterone director men. The voice. Grooming talk. So there you are, standing with your friends at the party. You've appraised the full figure of this still mysterious person standing near you, and you still like what you see. Now it's time to talk, so you strike up a conversation about the food. Instantly, you are struck by the way this person talks. The voice says volumes about one's background, education, and intentions. If the accent isn't right, it's over. The music of the voice is important too. If he quacks like a duck, if she sounds too chirpy, or she growls, you're repulsed. People regard rapid talkers as better educated, and those with more voice inflection as more interesting. In fact, if you have a warm, full, impressive voice, people actually regard you as better looking. Indeed, you probably are. People with voices that others have rated as attractive are also more physically symmetrical. But let's say that in the case of this mysterious stranger, you like both the accent and the voice inflection. Now for the words. Words make up only about 10% of the vocal signal people broadcast. Their vocal tones make up another 35% of their message, and their body postures and gestures comprise another 55%. Even so, words are tiny bombs. If you're an explorer and you hear too many builder words like proper, moral, and schedule, you will probably speed off to get a drink, alone. If you're a builder, you might perk up, even focus a bit harder on this new member of the group. As my word type study showed, each personality type is far more attracted to some words than to others. So let's say the exotic person you're getting to know at the party has a high, sweet voice that appeals to men, or the deep, confident voice that women like. He or she is standing and moving in ways that you find attractive, as well as using words that appeal to your core nature as an explorer, builder, director, or negotiator. More hurdles have been cleared. Suddenly the music starts. Seized with curiosity, you ask the mysterious newcomer to dance, and he or she accepts. Rhythm's message. Almost immediately, waves of anxiety hit you in the stomach. You think, what if this enchanting creature can't keep the beat? Even worse, what if you maul him or her with your own fat feet? Why do we feel so nervous when we first dance with a prospective sweetheart? Because the way we move says reams about who we are, as anthropologists Robert Trivers and Lee Cronk have established. These scientists taped laser reflectors to several moving body parts of young Jamaican men and women, including their shoulders, elbows, wrists, hips, knees, and ankles. Then they used cameras to record the Jamaicans' movements as they danced. Last, Trivers and Cronk displayed only the moving lights on a computer screen and asked other Jamaicans to pick out the best dancers. The observers easily identified the most coordinated participants. But these rhythmic men and women were more than just good at keeping time. They were also more physically symmetrical. So as coordinated men and women hold and move their bodies in rhythmic ways, they're actually showing off their strong immune systems and genetic strength. Odor prints. Happily, you weathered this short whirl around the floor with this newcomer, and all toes are still intact. You also achieved some rhythmic synchrony. A good sign, because studies show that brainwaves get in sync when you keep the same beat. Even better, as you spun around the floor, your partner gazed at you for a long moment. And this eye language, known as the copulatory gaze, sent a shiver down your spine. Equally important, while you moved rhythmically together, you caught a whiff of him or her and found it pleasing. This is essential. Tobacco, liquor, spicy food, perfume or cologne, lingering odors from the gym, dozens of scents compose your odor print. And smells make a beeline to the brain's primitive centers for memory and emotion. Here they detonate, causing immediate sensations of attraction or repulsion. Moreover, these aromatic missiles say vital things about a person's well-being. Women and men with what others consider sexy body odors are more likely to have symmetrical faces, signs of a strong immune system, and good health. It's a good beginning. Courtship talk, similar values. So you leave the dance floor and your group and head for the bar to get a drink together. Now begins a serious stage in the wooing process, searching for compatibility. As you recall, explorers like adventure and activity, so if you are one of those sensation seekers, you are likely to strike up a conversation about something you did recently. Builders, ever precise and literal, like facts and details. They also tend to be social, so a builder is more likely to begin a casual chat about a recent political, sports, or social event, or someone they know at the party. The director may dive into an intellectual conversation on an important, perhaps esoteric topic, and a negotiator may embark on how he or she feels about a broad, often philosophical issue. Regardless of how this conversation begins, an explorer is soon likely to ask you what you do. A builder will be more interested in finding out whom you know, a director will want to learn what you think, and a negotiator will inquire about how you feel about some issue or event. It looks casual, but it's not. Nothing is casual at the beginning of a courtship. You are hanging on every word, every phrase, every detail of the conversation. You are overweighing these details, too. With so little information about him or her, every crumb of data counts. Foremost, you are searching for your new partner's values, and values must be shared. If you believe that captains of industry should be free to develop the world's natural resources, while the newcomer eats tofu and hugs trees to protect the planet, if you go to church every morning on your way to work while the stranger shares H.L. Mencken's view that religion is a high and ghostly matter that can't be fathomed, if you like to spend your Saturdays with your buddies on a party yacht, while this mysterious person likes to go to museums and play the violin, if you and your would-be partner suddenly realize that you hold very different core values, both of you will soon drift to opposite ends of the buffet line. The romance is over. Men and women are attracted to individuals who share their standards, ethics, morals, and ideals. This is why psychologists and some dating services maintain that similarity attracts. When it comes to values, similarity does attract. All four temperament types also gravitate to those who come from their own socioeconomic and ethnic background, those with the same general level of education and intelligence, those with similar political and religious views, those with similar social goals, those with the same degree of financial stability, those with similar social and communication skills, and those with a similar sense of humor. In all these ways, like attracts like, what anthropologists call positive assortive mating or fitness matching. It sounds like a lot of work to weigh all these criteria during one's first conversation with a potential life partner. But psychologists believe that we make up our minds about whether an individual could be an appropriate mate within the first 3 minutes of talking to him or her. With no contradictory or modulating information about this unfamiliar person, we weigh these first impressions heavily, dramatically influencing how the relationship will proceed. But let's say that in this case, you discover that you do happen to share many values. The newcomer hates the same politicians you hate, celebrates Christmas, Ramadan, or Hanukkah the way you do, and eats only vegan or loves steaks and fries just like you. As the evening progresses, you discover that this appealing individual also shares many of your interests. You both like to ski, go on long walks with your dog, play cards, and read the same newspaper. So far, so good. But another vital benchmark lies ahead. Can this person give you what you need? Exchanging needs, providing roles. Tell me whom you love, and I will tell you who you are, and more especially, who you want to be. Psychologist Theodore Reich believed that men and women choose mates who satisfy an important need, including the qualities they themselves lack. John W. Warner IV, the son of the Republican senator from Virginia, appears to have found what he needed in Shannon Ford Ham, as she has in him. The New York Times recently reported that after 4 years as hellmaster of his fraternity at the University of Virginia, John turned to racing cars. It's a thrill going around the track 6 inches from the wall at 180 miles an hour, he said, hours before his nuptials. But he grew tired of the speedway, of playing pool, and of squiring supermodels to after-hours clubs. He matured and fell in love with Shannon, an educator from Minnesota who taught first grade at the Spence School in New York. As one guest remarked on their wedding day in 2007, these two people are just perfect for each other. She is enormously patient, and he is enormously impatient, and it really goes together. Social exchange theory holds that men and women are attracted to those who can provide them with the resources they seek in exchange for the assets they can provide. The exchange may be of any kind, but it must be fair. Both partners must believe that they are acquiring the right rewards for the right price. Perhaps she trades her superior education as a doctor for his upper-class pedigree. Some trade their tallness for the other's shortness, consciously or unconsciously hoping to produce children of average height. Submissive individuals often gravitate to those who are dominant. In a classic study of some 10,000 men and women in 37 countries, men were more likely to seek women who were young and beautiful, women who could bear them healthy offspring. And women more regularly sought men with status, education, money, and other tangible goods and services they needed to rear their young. So as you talk at the bar with this engaging person about what each of you does, whom you know, what you think, and how you feel, you are also sizing up your potential partner's assets, what each of you can bring to the relationship. If either of you discovers that the other is already involved in a long-term relationship, is about to move to Timbuktu for the next 5 years, is flat broke, or has some other non-negotiable trait, you will lose romantic interest instantly. The quandary comes, of course, when you perceive that this intriguing person can meet some of your deepest needs, but not others. In fact, I suspect that all of us have a hierarchy of needs. Some we are willing to forgo, while others absolutely must be fulfilled. Moreover, no two people's non-negotiable needs are exactly the same. I've seen men and women who are willing to overlook a lousy sex life with a partner who can give them the intellectual environment they crave. Others will tolerate alcoholism or adultery if they can get the money, influence, or connections they feel they can't live without. I remember a beautiful young assistant of mine once telling me, matter-of-factly, why she had decided not to marry a particular man. She said, "I'm smarter, richer, and better looking than he is. I need an equal." I agreed. This need complementarity is often essential to a strong relationship. If the costs outweigh the benefits, you are not likely to pursue the match. But as you stand there at the bar, talking and listening, you're beginning to feel that this charming individual might be able to provide what you require. This exotic creature comes from your general economic, social, and educational background, shares your values, is single and available, and also appears to have a good job, live in the right part of town, knows some interesting people, even does some of the things you like to do. Moreover, This possible life partner is passably good-looking and amusing, even able to keep your beat on the dance floor. You stand a little closer to him or her. The roles we play. Now, for another serious consideration, your role in the relationship. As you talk of politics, golf, poetry, or the weather, you secretly wonder if you could really play the roles required in a partnership with this individual. If you suddenly find that this intoxicating person is a sword swallower in a traveling circus, or in some other way lives in a lifestyle you can't imagine joining, it's over. If this individual is an academic, financier, or artist instead, and you think you could fit in as this person's spouse, your romantic interest grows even more. I recall the moment I understood the importance of one's role in a relationship. I was visiting a girlfriend after making a speech in upstate New York, when her mother pulled me aside to whisper, "You don't marry a person, you marry a lifestyle." It's true. Your daily life with an explorer is likely to be very different from your routine with a builder, director, or negotiator. But I think you marry a person and a lifestyle. The role you will play in a relationship is only one of many vital make or break points in a budding partnership. So let's say that you and your new friend have established the roles that each is likely to play in this potential partnership, and you're feeling even more compatible. Ready to take the leap? No, because here comes the most subtle and dangerous obstacle of all, your childhood and your other past experiences. Love maps. Childhood is damn serious business, said the children's book author and illustrator Maurice Sendak. He was right. As you grow up, you begin to build an unconscious list of traits you are eventually seeking in him or her. Psychologist Marcel Zentner calls this complex psychological chart your ideal mate personality concept. I call it your love map. Everybody's love map is unique. Your mother's zest, your father's way with words, how your parents, siblings, and other kin express love and handle money, what your childhood friends think is funny, what your peers admire, how your teachers view honor, justice, and kindness, what your community cares about. These and hundreds of other forces and events converge to create a unique constellation of interests, values, beliefs, and behavioral idiosyncrasies you carry in your head. Then this largely unconscious psychological map guides you as you navigate the sea of mating opportunities and finally settle on the one. This is one reason why it's difficult to introduce single friends to one another. We don't know their love map. It also helps to explain why some couples remain together even though none of their friends can fathom why. Take my friend Mary. Mary grew up with an alcoholic father, a lawyer by profession. As a child, she became used to her dad's unpredictability. She never knew when he would be attentive and compassionate, when surly, when violent. She learned to expect drama every day and night. She was her mother's accomplice, too, helping to hide the truth from neighbors, family, and friends. Mary resolved she would never marry an alcoholic like Dad. She didn't. Whom did Mary marry? A sober, yet unpredictable, undependable artist. Mary's love map had given her a taste for the capriciousness and excitement she had learned to expect as a child. Building your love map. Psychologists have offered many theories about the primary forces that contribute to your love map. Freudians maintain that women tend to fall in love with men like their father, whereas men are attracted to women much like their mother. They believe we are attempting to reunite with our first true love, the parent of the opposite sex. Others believe we choose a mate who is similar to the parent with whom we have unresolved issues, a partner who suffered traumas similar to our own in childhood, a partner who will provide the type of infant attachment we made with our own mother, be it secure, ambivalent, or avoidant, or a partner who will reflect the values and interests of our childhood friends. I think all the forces mentioned above, and many more, affect your love map. Yet each of us is influenced by certain experiences more than others, creating our own unique tapestry of requirements for loving. Moreover, this love map changes over time. As you ride the waves of life and experience a few romantic disasters, you trim and deepen your image of the ideal mate. Positive illusions. Interestingly, women have clearer, more incisive love maps than men. And women are better than men at picking a partner who fits within their love map. This feminine skill pays off, too. People are happier in long-term partnerships when their mate has many of the traits that fit within their ideal. Nevertheless, even a good love map fit is not as effective as your positive illusions. I say this because the happiness you will find in a relationship depends less on whether this individual actually fits within your love map than on whether you think this person fits within your love map. Known as love blindness, this may be one reason why self-deception evolved, to keep us happy with a romantic partner. Love begets love. It's getting late, but there you are, still chatting with this appealing person. The two of you have talked and flirted, danced and shared a drink, told each other what you did last summer, exchanged some thoughts about world affairs, established whom you both know in town, and discovered that you like the same music, art, and sports. Moreover, this person you are talking to fits your concept of the ideal mate. You wonder, will this be our first or our last conversation together? Suddenly something happens, and you know. Perhaps it's the way he asks you for your phone number a second time, or the way she smiles at you when you say it's time to go. But in an instant, you realize this person is seriously interested in you. And that thought starts a fire in your brain. Love begets love, wrote poet Theodore Rothke. Men and women tend to fall in love with people who are in love with them. You say goodnight. Nature has played her primordial melody, and this new person in your life has slipped easily through your funnel of cultural and biological criteria. You don't know it, but even your personality types are in sync. And as you turn away, you feel the first tingling ecstasy of intense romantic love.